programmed so specifically that they are able to be tortured by boredom until they become completely subservient, as we see with the digital clone of Greta. Plus, the computer is programmed to be convinced it's just been pulled right out of its own body, that it's inhabited all its life in order to train it to be a slave to itself. By placing the perspective on the robot, we become attached to it, despite it really being nothing but code.
Ever wanted to be the lead character in your favourite TV show? Meet Captain Kirk. Robert Daly, technological genius and perpetual teenager. Not only is this the man who created Infinity, the most realistic and immersive mass multiplayer online video game ever, but also the man that modified the game to provide him with the same release as shouting into your pillow. Only difference is the people inside his mod are exact replicas of his colleagues that seem to taunt him every day that he shows up for work. The mod is initially booted up displaying how it should run. The screen is even formatted in a 4:3 aspect ratio with dramatic music playing in retro quality audio. All the other times we see in game are presented in widescreen format to create a fusion between reality and fantasy, something that Robert Daly sometimes has trouble differentiating between. This is seen when he is distracted by Shania walking past him, causing him to trip, and also mistakenly calls the office intern helmsman, what he refers to him as in game. Although displaying confidence and leadership inside the mod, his social skills have clearly deteriorated in reality to the point where he awkwardly asks Packer to make him a coffee, who in response shows little recognition of Daly's authority. He is also laughed at by colleagues, and his partner at the company doesn't even give him the time of day when passing his office. This partner of his named Walton even bursts into Daly's office telling him how to do his job, humiliating him in front of a girl he had only just met. Of course, he could try to rectify the situation by, attempting to talk to them at least, but although there is clarity on how these people treat each other, digitally or not, it's unclear for how long exactly he has been collecting samples on his co-workers. What is clear, however, is that over this period of time, Daly's happiness hasn't improved. Although Daly may have got it into his head that his actions in digital space are justified, the problems in his life are left to fester, such as his inability to coordinate an update before Christmas Eve results in his partner despising him even more, and also how the only girl he ever got the chance of scoring with breaks into his home and steals his possessions from right under his nose. His lifestyle has probably not changed since his breakthrough success either. If you watch closely enough, you'll see this shot here displaying the countless unfinished fizzy drink bottles and empty takeout boxes that are littered throughout his kitchen. The extent of his laziness and inability to look after himself is displayed perfectly when the second pizza arrives. Instead of standing his ground at how absurd it is for a pizza to arrive on your doorstep without ordering one, he just pays away his problem to avoid the conflict, with the added advantage of not needing to concern himself over how he should feed himself that night. He also avoids conflict when Dudani announces the new ETA for the update patch. Daly is clearly troubled by this, as he is reminded of what his partner wants, but just smiles and thanks him instead of rectifying the problem. I think the underlying message of presenting Daly like this is to question whether one needs to strive to be a great person in real life when you can just simply live as whatever or whoever you want, consequence-free, within a virtual space. There is also a strong emphasis on obsession and collection within this story that is explored with such subtlety that one might have missed some very interesting details about Daly's character. The first we see of these tendencies are when we are shown around his office. The entirety of the Space Fleet series is seen displayed on a shelf in all formats. Now, a first glance will identify that these certainly aren't very advanced technologies, given that the story is centralized on a virtual reality created for the purposes of gaming instead of therapy and socialization like that of what we saw in San Junipero. It's only when we enter Daly's room do we see the advancement of these primitive technologies. The device used to recreate people from a DNA sample operates in a similar mechanical manner to that of how a DVD or Blu-ray player willingly accepts the media that's inserted inside it and acts to provide us with the entertainment stored on the disc. Although it's more akin to ripping a CD onto a computer,
as you can interact with the files in countless ways.
Further entertainment than just listening to the piece.
This is further supported when Nanette is being essentially ripped from the DNA sample and the word assimilating appears on the screen. If we use the biological definition of the word, it's clear that Daly's obsession grows beyond just merely having a collection, but that her absorption into the machine will make him better in some way. Also seen in his room are model brains locked behind glass, reflecting his obsession with collecting, torturing and tormenting minds just so he can get through the social torture of the office he works in. It is after Daly eavesdrops on Shania and Nanette's conversation by the coffee machine do we see the digital tyrant come out in the image of him reflected in the glass. Although it is merely a trick of the glass and lighting, I'm certain that this shot was intentionally created to display this dark side of Daly that is about to be revealed to us. Such a tiny provocation is enough to condemn Nanette to a life imprisoned on board fleet in Robert's eyes. The AI are completely sealed off from the real world, as we learn once Nanette is recreated on the ship, who also acts as a type of update for the system. This is shown when Packer and Walton both want to know what's been going on in the real world since their assimilation. Their desire reminds us that although these are recreations of human beings, they are still ultimately code obeying the commands of a machine. As a result of this fact alone, the episode questions how we should treat machines that pass the Turing test to the degree we see portrayed in the episode. This ambiguity of how we treat AI is the predominant focus of a TV show you've probably already seen called Westworld, where an entire theme park of artificially designed humans operate for the sole purpose of entertaining us horny, murderous humans. Casting Jimmy Simpson in this episode was certainly a nod to this, as he is one of the main characters in Westworld. If you love Black Mirror as much as I do, make sure Westworld is at the top of your priority list for what you should watch next, along with Inside Number 9. That's pretty swaglicious too. The computer-generated people on board the fleet perform their fictional characters much like that of an actor on stage being held at gunpoint. The guns they are given act as props, and characters often find themselves ad-libbing in a melodramatic fashion. Even this is a bit of a gamble though. We see Dudani praising Daly for his mercy, but Packer encourages him to remain silent. On the other side of the coin is when Shania breaks character for a moment to defend Nanette from being tortured again. Instead, she faces the terrifying punishment of being transformed into a giant mutant monster like he did to Gillian. They must all perform in order to provide the immersive experience Daly demands, and are programmed, not by code but by force, to obey and prioritize the pleasure and entertainment of the player. In fact, even the lighting changes so dramatically whenever Daly joins or leaves the game, showing again the extent to how the player's pleasure is prioritized above all else. Nanette uses this aspect of the game to her advantage when she uses her womanly charm to sway Daly into doing things her way. Daly previously used the phrase,
"I tried the carrot, now meet the stick,"
meaning that it is their behavior and compliance that he desires at the base level. Now, interestingly here, we are more than aware that Daly desires more from Nanette than just these arbitrary factors. Despite the game has removed their genitalia, when she adds these nuances to her language, she can undoubtedly have influence over a young man who has never been able to act on these desires in real life. Like White Christmas, the author of these machines uses boredom to drive his test subjects up the wall. Daly keeps his computer running all day long because presumably in this futuristic setting, electricity is practically pouring out of their ears due to a lack of dependence on finite resources. This does mean that the people in the machine remain awake and active for the entire time Daly is absent from the game to bash their heads on desks pain-free and get drunk all the time. This also means, however, that they're given ample opportunity to scheme up a plot to destroy themselves by blackmailing themselves in reality. A mighty gaping hole in the plan, if I do say so myself. At the same time though, I would guess that Daly doesn't even bother checking the activity of his creations due to having so little regard for them, as well as having to face both real and digital versions of these people every day that he has to work. He cares so little for them that they become subhuman, stripping them of the ability to eat, dream, shit, and shag, all elements that humans take for granted and even complain about on a frequent basis. But the bleak boredom causes them to desire such basic things above all else, not to mention the hopelessness they must all feel due to the hostile and inescapable environment they inhabit too. Walton himself is the man who knows this more than anybody else, he being the one Daly resents the most and the one who has been in there the longest. This leads them to desire one thing above all else. Such a cruel existence can only be resolved by simply ending it. Robert Daly made himself a tyrannical god of his own universe in a similar fashion as applying too many cheats to a video game until there's no challenge or fun left. The computer is now rebelling against the prioritization of the player, which even without cheats would be a really annoying thing to deal with, given that the intelligence within the machine is identical to that of a human being. Like how the chess champion of the world is a computer, Black Mirror posits that perhaps the future design of games should be immersive in a way that is harmless both to the players and the machines that inhabit the same space. Like an angry teenager losing a match of Call of Duty, Robert shouts explicitly to his computer to take him out of the game. This is followed by a soft rendition of Silent Night beginning to play as the show reveals Daly dead at the wheel, so to speak. The words "sleep in heavenly peace" are not heard in the song, but the notation is played just as we see him dead, juxtaposing the horror of dying in the vacuum of space and dying in a presumably pain-free way in reality. Just as the episode ends, the voice of a typical online gamer, played by Aaron Paul in case you didn't quite register who it was, could easily be Jesse Pinkman crossing over into the Black Mirror universe from Breaking Bad. So he gave up his life of crime to play video games. I am so happy Vince Gilligan and Charlie Brooker are chummies, otherwise this ending wouldn't have been anywhere near as good. Thanks for watching. Do you think it is ethical for AI to be built with the ability to feel pain? Comment below where this discussion will continue. Lovely jubbly.